receptionist told him he didn't belong in the building just minutes before he was set to close on a $42 million deal. What followed shook the entire company to its core. The rain wasn't heavy, but just enough to blur the glass doors outside Holston and Royce Consulting in downtown Minneapolis. Inside the sleek marble-tiled lobby, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the faint scent of fresh espresso lingered in the air. People in sharp jackets walked past, earbuds in and phones glued to their hands. Everyone seemed like they had somewhere important to be. Terrence Dupree walked through the door, unnoticed at first. He was dressed in a dark navy trench coat, nothing designer, just practical, and carried a leather briefcase, clearly worn with age. No Rolex, no bodyguard, just a tall black man, 44 years old, with clear eyes and a calm presence. He didn't demand attention, but maybe he should have. The receptionist, Megan, barely looked up as he approached. Her name tag read Hegan, and she couldn't have been older than 26, with a blonde bob and thick lashes. She had one AirPod in, barely acknowledging him before glancing at the clock behind him. "Hi, I have a 10 a.m. with the executive board," Terrence said, his voice steady and polite. She blinked, then asked, "For which department?" "I'm here to meet with the board of directors. It's scheduled. I'm Terrence Dupree." Terrence waited a moment, giving her time to process. Instead, she smirked and said, "Right, you're with what again? Sales? Vendors don't use this entrance." "No," he replied calmly. "I'm the CEO of D-Tech Solutions." Megan leaned back in her chair, as if she didn't believe a word he said. She glanced at her monitor with a dramatic sigh. "I don't see your name here. Maybe you have the wrong building." He didn't flinch. "This is 1224 Wabash Avenue, right?" "Yeah, but like I said, we don't let outside vendors wait around up here. If you're dropping something off, go through the loading back entrance." Terrence paused for just a moment, not because he didn't know what to say, but because he'd been in this situation before. He didn't argue, didn't flash any credentials, and didn't make a scene. He looked at her, gave a small nod, and turned toward the exit. As he reached the door, a junior associate stepped off the elevator, a young guy, probably fresh out of college. He froze mid-step when he saw Terrence. His eyes widened. "Mr. Dupree," he said, breath-catching. "Wait, sir, you're early. They're still—" Terrence raised a hand gently, not breaking stride. "No worries. Tell them thank you for the opportunity," he said, pushing open the door and stepping back into the street. The associate stood frozen, mouth half open, as the elevator doors closed behind him. Back at the front desk, Megan went back to scrolling on her phone, completely unaware that her dismissive smirk was about to cost the company more than anyone could imagine. What Megan didn't know was who she had just turned away. Terrence Dupree wasn't born into power. He wasn't handed keys to corner offices, trust funds, or polished networks. He was born in Mobile, Alabama, in a two-bedroom house that leaned just a little to the left after a storm in '92. His mother worked nights as a hospital custodian, and his father, when he was around, hustled car repairs from their driveway. Terrence learned early on how to make things work, even when they didn't. What he lacked in privilege, he made up for in precision. He wasn't loud or flashy, but when he spoke, you listened because he never wasted words. By 16, he had already built a functioning desktop out of discarded school parts, not to play games, but to understand how they communicated with each other. While other kids were texting or sneaking out, Terrence was teaching himself how to write code on a broken monitor propped up with a phone book. He earned a partial scholarship to Tuskegee University and graduated in the top 5% of his class. He didn't rush into a frat or go to parties. He was building something, and he knew it. His first company, a small platform for managing mobile team schedules, was coded in a two-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in Birmingham. It failed, but he didn't sulk. He reworked it. The second attempt, same idea, better delivery, got acquired, but it was D-Tech Solutions that changed the game. He built it from the ground up. No angel investors, no flashy launch, just clean contracts, effective delivery, and systems that worked. By year 4, major logistics companies were using D-Tech to coordinate truck shipments across the Southwest. He kept his circle tight, his books clean, and his office door open. By the time he was 44, he had turned D-Tech into one of the fastest-growing SaaS firms in the region, not in Silicon Valley, not New York, not LA. He didn't need those zip codes to validate him. Now, Holston and Royce would learn just how wrong they were. The firm that just told him to leave was on the verge of signing a $42 million partnership deal with him. The deal had been in the works for 7 months. His team had flown out twice, background checks, paperwork, and projections all cleared. The final meeting was supposed to be a formality. They just wanted to meet the man behind the deal before closing. They got their chance, and they blew it. Why? Because he didn't walk in with a badge swinging around his neck. Because he didn't look like their idea of authority. Because their front desk gatekeeper couldn't picture him sitting across from their boardroom table. Terrence had seen this before, at banks, hotels, even tech conferences, where people assumed he was part of the catering staff. But here's the thing, he didn't get angry. He never did. He didn't take it personally. Not because it wasn't personal, but because giving them that power would have meant they won something, and they hadn't. As he walked down Wabash Avenue, the rain misting against his coat, his phone buzzed twice. He checked the screen. It was a message from his VP in Phoenix, confirming everything was green-lit for the contract signing next week. Terrence stopped. He looked up at the skyline and made a decision right then and there, standing on the sidewalk. One move, just one. He scrolled through his phone to a contact labeled Travis R. from Archon Systems and tapped it. Back in Minneapolis, he had one choice, and he made it without saying a single word. The call connected in 2 rings. Terrence? The voice on the other end was half surprised, half amused. Man, you don't usually call me unless someone's screwed up. Who is it this time? Terrence chuckled faintly. Travis, I've got something for you. You at your desk? Yeah, what's going on? Terrence stepped under the awning of a sandwich shop across from the Holston and Royce building. He kept his tone calm. Remember that platform integration Holston's been dragging their feet on? Travis's tone shifted. Yeah, you were supposed to be closing with them today, right? I was, until their front desk decided I wasn't worth the elevator ride. There was a brief silence on the line before Travis burst out laughing, short and sharp, almost disbelieving. You're kidding. Nope, Terrence replied. The receptionist told me to leave. Didn't even check the calendar. That's wild, Travis muttered. You walk in there in a hoodie or something? Just a coat and a briefcase, Terrence said. I guess it wasn't shiny enough. Travis let out a slow whistle. Let me guess. They thought you were a delivery guy? More like a vendor, Terrence replied. Either way, not worth their time. Travis was quiet again, this time for longer. Then he said, You serious about what I think you're about to say? Terrence took a breath. I'm ready to redirect the deal if Archon can meet the same terms. And I mean all of them. You know we can, Travis replied. Our lawyers already reviewed the last draft. We were ready 2 months ago. Good, Terrence said. Then consider it yours. I'll have my general counsel reach out by EOD. We'll move fast. Travis didn't hide his excitement. Terrence, I don't know what to say, man. I mean, that's huge. Say thank you, Terrence said with a hint of warmth. And don't make me regret it. You won't, Travis swore. Terrence ended the call and slipped the phone back into his coat. He didn't linger. Across the street, the Holston and Royce Tower looked just the same as it had 30 minutes ago, tall, proud, expensive. But to Terrence, it already looked hollow. Inside, in the boardroom on the 29th floor, a glass pitcher of cucumber water sat untouched. 9 chairs around the table were filled with senior partners, executives, and the lead negotiator, who kept checking his watch. Still, nothing, one of them asked. No call, no text. The negotiator said he confirmed yesterday. He's never done this, another executive muttered. A senior partner frowned. Send someone down to check. An intern rushed down the elevator, breathless. He came back, shaking his head. No sign of him, he said. Reception said someone came in earlier, but they turned him away, thought he was a contractor. Silence swept the room like a sudden draft. You're telling me they didn't even let him in? the negotiator asked slowly. That's what she said. Murmurs turned into confusion, confusion into unease. A couple of executives started typing furiously on their phones. Then a woman in a gray pantsuit, a sharp-eyed partner named Simone Barkley, spoke up. If he walked out, and if he's serious about this deal, it's already gone, she said. But maybe, someone began. No, Simone cut in. You don't walk away from 7 months of negotiation unless you already know exactly where to go next. That man doesn't bluff. We just insulted one of the sharpest operators in this industry, and we did it at our front desk. Nobody said a word. The negotiator finally asked, Should we reach out? Simone shook her head. You can try, but it won't matter. Across town, Terrence stepped into a rideshare, heading for the airport. As the car pulled away from the curb, he didn't look back. He knew what came next, and he didn't need to see it happen to feel it. The boardroom upstairs was still waiting, unaware that their moment had already passed. By the time Monday morning rolled around, the atmosphere at Holston and Royce's boardroom wasn't just tense, it felt electric, but in all the wrong ways. No one had heard from Terrence Dupree, no emails, no calls, not even a cold, impersonal, we've decided to go in another direction. Nothing, just silence. Downstairs, Megan, the receptionist, was back at her post. She sipped her cold brew through a green straw, tapping through photos from her weekend brunch. She glanced at the revolving doors once or twice, half expecting to see the man from Friday walk through. Deep down, she thought maybe he'd return. Maybe he'd come crawling back with an apology or some delivery paperwork. But nothing. Upstairs, in a tense internal meeting, the firm's leadership team scrambled to spin the no-show into something more manageable. Maybe he had a personal emergency, one partner suggested. Maybe he's trying to pressure us for better terms, another offered. Simone Barkley, calm and sharp as always, shook her head. Terrence Dupree doesn't play games like that. If he's gone quiet, it's not by accident. That afternoon, the confirmation came. Archon Systems, Holston and Royce's closest competitor, posted a formal press release. We are thrilled to announce a strategic integration with D-Tech Solutions, the leading logistics optimization platform in the Midwest. This partnership marks a pivotal moment in the industry. The email hit inboxes at 2:03 p.m. By 2:15, the boardroom was dead silent. Nobody spoke. Someone actually dropped their pen. A senior advisor, gray-haired and tight-lipped, pushed his chair back and muttered, Well, that's the damn ball game. Someone turned to Simone. Can we claw it back? Simone didn't blink. You can't uninsult a man like that. Downstairs, Megan still had no idea. It wasn't until later that evening, after her shift, when she was having a drink with her friend from HR, that she learned who Terrence really was. Her friend leaned across the table, lowered her voice. You know that deal we were working on for like half a year? Yeah, the tech thing. That was the guy you turned away on Friday. Megan blinked. No way. That guy. Her friend nodded, lips tight. He's worth more than our entire quarterly profit. You told him to get lost. Megan laughed nervously. Okay, but he didn't say he was that important. He did, Megan. You just didn't listen. The next morning, HR started sending out emails about front-facing personnel protocols, gatekeeping, and sensitivity training. Megan was pulled into a meeting by a supervisor who used words like reputation, damage, and public perception. She kept asking, how was I supposed to know? But nobody had a good answer, and that was the problem. Meanwhile, Terrence was already deep in talks with Archon's executive team. He had moved fast, signed within 3 days. The partnership gave Archon access to D-Tech's proprietary scheduling AI, an advantage that immediately set them leagues ahead of Holston and Royce. Clients started to notice. One by one, companies that had relied on Holston for years began calling with questions, then cancellations, then silence. In just 10 business days, Holston lost 3 major contracts, including a prospective government pilot deal that had been 2 years in the making. Investors got nervous. Shares dropped 12% in 1 week. By Friday, one of the senior partners who had vouched for Megan's hiring quietly resigned, but the real consequences hadn't even begun to hit. The Monday after the stock dip, the office felt different. Executives who once greeted each other with handshakes now passed in silence. Hallway conversations stopped when certain people walked by. Even the janitorial staff seemed to sense something had shifted. The receptionist's desk sat empty for most of the morning. Megan didn't show up. Word floated around that she had been placed on unpaid leave, pending review. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone knew it had to do with him, the man in the coat, the one she had waved away like a flyer distributor. Upstairs in the executive suite, the walls were closing in. Mark Keller, the head of partnerships, had spent the weekend doing damage control, reaching out to clients and explaining the unforeseen disruption in the D-Tech partnership. But every call felt like chasing a shadow. One client from Des Moines didn't even wait for his pitch. "You lost D-Tech," he said flatly. And just like that, the tide had turned. The man said flatly, "We'll be moving our business to Archon." Click. In just 1 week, the firm had lost over $18 million in projected earnings, and there was no sign of it slowing down. Simone Barkley sat quietly at her desk, scrolling through LinkedIn, her mind racing. She knew this moment would come, not just because of the blunder, but because of what it exposed. Their arrogance had always been their secret weakness. They had built their success on pedigree, connections, the right image. But somewhere along the way, they'd forgotten that real power didn't always wear a three-piece suit. Simone had been the one to push for Terrence's deal from the start. She respected what he had built. She admired his silence, his restraint. Now, watching it all unravel, she couldn't say she was surprised. The press caught wind of the story. A blog out of St. Paul broke the news. Tech giant D-Tech walks away from major deal after being snubbed in lobby, signs with competitor instead. The headline went viral. Within hours, business outlets picked it up. Reddit forums dissected it. Twitter exploded with hot takes. Most people didn't know Terrence personally, but they all had a story like his, a time when they were judged, dismissed, or underestimated. And now, the internet had found its folk hero. People started digging into Megan's old posts. Screenshots surfaced. Nothing outright cruel, but just enough sarcasm, just enough tone to light the fire. Holston and Royce tried to put out the flames. They issued a vague statement about reevaluating internal procedures and strengthening inclusivity efforts, but nobody cared. The damage had a face and a name, Terrence Dupree. However, Terrence never said a word publicly. No statements, no press tours, no tweets, just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any speech ever could. By the end of the month, the firm's top 2 clients had pulled their contracts. A third one, from Cincinnati, was in negotiations with Archon, citing confidence concerns. Behind closed doors, senior leadership had a different conversation. They blamed each other. Some wanted heads to roll. Others called for a total rebrand. Mark Keller resigned that Thursday, effective immediately. And Megan, she was quietly let go. No farewell email, no HR send-off, just a manila envelope and a short walk to the elevators. She didn't look angry when she left, just stunned, as if the weight of it hadn't truly hit her until the doors closed behind her. But everyone else knew it. The dominoes had fallen, and the hands that tipped them didn't belong to someone loud or angry. They belonged to someone quiet, someone who didn't need to scream to be heard. But the final blow came from the most unexpected place. 2 months later, just as Minneapolis was thawing from a stubborn March cold, Terrence Dupree returned. He didn't announce it. No emails, no calendar invites, no cameras. He simply walked in through the same glass doors, wearing the same dark coat, carrying the same worn briefcase. This time, the security guard on duty stood up as soon as he saw him and radioed upstairs. Within minutes, someone from the executive floor was on their way down to meet him. Terrence didn't speak to the front desk. He didn't even glance at it. There was no Megan there anymore, just a quiet temp named Rosalind, who offered a polite, "Good morning," without recognizing the man in front of her. He nodded once, barely, and waited. Simone Barkley was the one who greeted him. She stepped off the elevator in a tailored black coat. Her expression was unreadable, but not cold. She didn't offer a handshake right away, just a quiet "Terrence," as though she were acknowledging something long overdue. He returned her name with the same calm tone. "Simone," he said. "Appreciate you coming," she said, "even if it's not for what we hoped." He didn't reply to that, not right away. They walked together to a small private conference room on the third floor. Nothing fancy, no big views, just 2 chairs, a table, and a carafe of coffee. Someone had thoughtfully left it, though neither of them touched it. Simone sat down, exhaling deeply before speaking. "I'll be straight with you," she began. "The firm's taken a beating. We lost 5 major contracts. 2 more are pulling back. Our reputation, well, you know." Terrence didn't say anything. He just let her talk. "We've made changes," Simone continued. "The people responsible for what happened, they're no longer with us." "That's good," Terrence replied calmly. "But that's not really why I'm here." Simone folded her hands, waiting. "Then why?" she asked. Terrence looked her in the eye. "Because someone asked me if I was ever going to say anything publicly about what happened," he said, his tone steady. She held his gaze, waiting for more. "And I told them no," he continued. "Because I wasn't interested in revenge. That's not how I work." Simone exhaled a subtle, almost invisible breath of relief. The silence between them spoke volumes, but for the first time in a long time, it was a silence that felt like understanding. "I came," he added, "because I needed to see what I walked away from, to remind myself I made the right call." There was silence between them, sharp but respectful. Then Simone said, "You did." He stood, the meeting having lasted less than 8 minutes. As they walked back toward the elevators, a group of interns passed them in the hallway. One of them, a young black woman in a brown blazer, slowed when she saw Terrence. Her eyes widened just slightly, just enough to let him know she knew exactly who he was. She didn't say anything, just gave a respectful, subtle nod. He returned it. Back in the lobby, as Terrence moved toward the door, his eyes flicked once toward the receptionist's desk. Rosalind was busy on the phone, organizing visitor badges. She didn't notice him watching, but the desk looked different now, not because of who sat behind it, but because of what it used to represent. Terrence stepped out onto the sidewalk without a word. The wind tugged at his coat, and for the first time since the failed meeting, he allowed himself a small smile. Not smug, not satisfied, just certain. Back inside, Simone stood in the lobby for a moment longer, watching him disappear into the crowd. A man they could have built something powerful with. A man they misread, underestimated, and dismissed. And yet, he'd given them the rarest gift of all, grace. The lesson stayed with everyone who witnessed it. It's easy to talk about power like it always announces itself, like it walks into a room with a red carpet, name tags, and a round of applause. But real power, the kind that moves without noise, that doesn't need to explain itself, looks a lot like Terrence Dupree. No titles stitched on his chest, no entourage, just a man, his work, and the history that shaped him. Holston and Royce learned something the hard way, something most people don't figure out until it's too late. It's not just bad business to judge someone by how they look. It's short-sighted, lazy, and a kind of blindness you don't notice until everything's burning and you're left wondering who struck the match. Terrence didn't destroy that company with a press release or a smear campaign. He didn't need to. He just chose to take his value somewhere it would be respected. And in doing so, he reminded a lot of people, loudly and silently, that respect doesn't trickle down from wealth, clout, or image. It rises from character, from how you treat someone when you think they have nothing to offer you. And maybe that's what stung the most for the firm. Not the money lost, not the headlines, but the knowledge that it could have been avoided with just an ounce of humility. There are Megans in every office, in every company, people who make snap judgments because someone doesn't fit their picture of success. Sometimes they do it quietly, sometimes with a laugh, sometimes with a line like, "You don't belong here." But what if that person is the opportunity, What if they're the one holding the key to your future? What if they're already 10 steps ahead and you just slam the door in your own face? This isn't just a cautionary tale for corporate America. It's a lesson for all of us about decency, patience, and slowing down long enough to really see people. Not for what they wear, not for how they speak, but for who they are and what they bring to the table. Because the truth is, character walks into the room long before credentials do. And if you can't recognize it, you don't deserve the benefits it brings. So the next time someone shows up looking different than you expected, pause, listen, ask, don't assume. Because the cost of arrogance isn't just financial. Sometimes it's your reputation, your partnerships, your future. And once it's gone, you don't always get a second shot. If this story made you think or hit close to home, don't scroll past. Share it, talk about it. And if you haven't already, subscribe. We've got more stories just like this, and every single one holds a mirror to the world we live in.